No, I know. Well, that was the whole point. And now I just got a buzz. It's the top of the hour. Should I wait 30 more seconds or? No. All right. So let's call the meeting to order. Registration protocols extensions. This is our second of two meetings. Roughly speaking, yesterday's meeting was the technical working session. This is the administrative meeting, if you will. Although I'm still hoping it's interesting. Although I have to say we've got far fewer people today than we had yesterday. And that's a little disappointing, but okay. Anyway, so I'm Jim Galvin. Antoine Verschuren over here next to me is my co-chair. And so let's jump into the next slide here and do the usual thing here. This is the note well, just a reminder that, you know, this is a public meeting and contributions here are public and become part of the IETF record and history and other kinds of implications. It's, you know, your responsibility to make sure you understand all of the details about that. And of course, all the policies that guide how we work, including the note really well as a reminder to please be professional. You know, let's avoid in any way reacting negatively to people. This is about technical work, and let's focus on our contributions and issues with respect to technology. And for anybody who believes that they're experiencing a problem in that space, you are welcome to reach out to your chairs, your area director, and of course we have an ombuds team in case anyone wants to go down that path. That is always welcome too. And then finally, code of conduct, you know, kind of reduced to 6 easy to understand principles for the layman, you know, about ensuring that we are working really for all the betterment of the internet at large and to behave like professionals. And that applies on the email as well as at the microphone. Important to keep the mailing list in mind in those discussions too. Okay, agenda bashing. This is pretty much a pro forma agenda for us, the way that we've always done things. You know, yesterday we did all the technology presentations, so that was just kind of a list of whoever asked for time so that we could have a working session. But this is typically our list here and the way that we order things up. So I'm going to assume there's no real change there. We'll just jump right in. We've already been doing the introductions, but one extra thing to add is a reminder about document management. You know, we're always interested in document shepherds, want to encourage people to be document shepherds. Keep in mind, if you're actively participating in work and you might have the opportunity to author work, you know, a good way to get to know people and be a part of the group is be a document shepherd first. You know, jump in and help somebody out prepare their document. If nothing else, it means that they owe you a favor. So good to keep that in mind as you're going forward here. Okay. Next few slides we can jump through rather quickly. We don't have any published documents this time around. We don't have any documents in the RFC editor queue. We do have 2 documents that have been submitted to the IESG. One, of course, is already in IETF last call. That's the DNS time to live. You'll remember yesterday, Gavin gave a presentation about the RDAP version of DNS time to live. This is the EPP mapping of that document. And the deletion of domain and host objects in EPP, the BCP clarifying document has been submitted, and that was just submitted, I think, just last week. Even hasn't really been all that long, but so that's only just in the ISG queue. But so it's beginning its process too. Yeah, and any questions or comments about that? Anybody have any concerns about those? Okay, that all seems to be on a pretty decent path. So let's move to past working group last call. We have 2 documents that are waiting on actions. One from your chairs, the GeoFeed document. We had asked the document shepherd to update the write-up, and they had done that, but we haven't taken the time just to look that over quick. But as soon as we do that, and presuming there aren't any issues, there rarely are when we look at the shepherd write-ups, but we do feel an obligation to at least read them once before we send them in. That will get submitted up to the ISG2, so that will get it off of our milestone list. And the RIR search is waiting for a document shepherd write-up. You'll remember yesterday, the last presentation of the day that we had was about the identifier discussion. And that was just a review of the issue that the document shepherd does need to bring and include in their shepherd write-up. We just want to document where all of that discussion got to, because it was a reasonably substantial issue. So it's good to capture that in the write-up. But assuming that we get that in the near future, then this document will be able to be shipped up to the IESG too. So that'll be another item off our milestone list. Any other comments or questions about those two documents and where they are? Okay, continuing right along. We don't have any documents in working group last call at this time, so that's good. So now we get to the really interesting meaty part of our agenda here, which is a discussion of some other interesting work. So this is the remainder of our documents that have not already been discussed. We had one yesterday, and we just ran through all the others that are in an administrative state, if you will. So quickly walking down this list here, I'll take them one at a time, just say out loud what we think the status is. And if you want to comment on a document, please just raise your hand and come up and say something. But the RDAP with extensions media type, as is true with most documents, in our working group here, documents really move along according to, authors who progress them. So we really do depend on the authors to continue to motivate discussion and review of their documents and keeping up with the discussion going on the mailing list, and then to ask for appropriate changes in state, in the most notable one being asking for working group last call. The RDAP with extensions media type, we are waiting on the authors as is usual, but it's our understanding that that one is really waiting for the RDAP extensions document to move first. So Andy, if you want to come in and jump in and put that in greater context, that'd be great.
Yeah, so we had a meeting with some of the people who've been commenting on the mailing list this morning. Thanks to James Gould for organizing that. And so there's some work we need to do. We're going to do another, at least one more rev of the document. And so that's where that stands. The other thing is that we kind of feel that the extensions draft should go first before this and the versioning draft, just because that kind of settles a lot of decisions that go into other documents.
So that's good. And I want to emphasize that last point that you made, just to play that back. That's what the chairs were expecting, and the way that we are thinking about the milestones and the way that we want to order them, that the extensions and versioning should come before this document. Conveniently, the work might be near being done and all of that's good, but even the chairs will order them in that way in terms of moving them forward. So anyone have any concerns or comments or questions about that?
Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I was trying to.
Go ahead, you can jump to the mic without raising your hand. We trust you.
Doing that. To follow up with Andy, we had a really good meeting discussing the compatibility between the X-Media and the versioning draft, because what's really important is the fact that they solve different problems and they work together. So I believe that we came to an agreement in all the cases where there was compatibility issues. And so I would anticipate that there'll be, as Andy said, an update to the X-Media draft as well as the versioning draft to based on that discussion. So, if you want me to, I can give a whole list of items, but I'd probably be better to put it on the mailing list. That's what I was thinking.
I think so. I think that'd be good. Appreciate that. Yeah. I think it's excellent and important that you guys as authors are getting together and sorting out these documents. So that's a good thing. That'll set us up nicely for the working group last call and moving along. So please.
Let me just second having the extensions draft finish out first what Andy said. We want to make sure that
So as long as you're standing there, when you say
Yeah.
finish first, you want extensions first, then versioning, then the X media type?
No, those would go together. I
Oh,
think
versioning and,
X media, they're going to have normative references to each other.
oh, okay. Oh, that's
So
important to know.
Those would go together, and so the extensions would be best to get through first.
Okay, good. That's important to know from a formal process point of view. They're going to reference each other and they're going to both going to be on the standard track. And Ori is nodding his head, so he's taking note. So he'll know that too when the time comes. Okay, I think that covers both of those, the X media type and the versioning document. Again, in general, waiting for the authors to move it along, and it's good, especially coming out of the Vancouver meeting last time, IETF 120. There was a period of time there when we were trying to group the RDAP with extensions and the versioning and the RDAP extensions documents together. And we realized that they should just be left to be alone, separate documents, and just be careful to distinguish each other and be clear about their relationship. So that's where we've gotten to, and that's a good thing. Okay. Moving on to the use of internationalized email addresses in EPP. Now, we had slotted 10 minutes for this discussion, but we've actually managed to do a fair amount of prep work here on this one. So I don't think we're going to take 10 minutes, but this one has been around for a while. It actually has quite some backstory. I'm not going to repeat all of that here. I think the important things to note are it had been submitted to the ISG. It had been remanded back to us. Thing to note about being remanded back to us and all of that was fine, the fact that it did that, but somehow its status and whatever it was in the data tracker got messed up as part of remanding it back to us. And we didn't really notice right away, but fortunately we were able to get with Ori early in the week here, and he actually cleaned all of that up on Sunday. So we got all that straightened out. So that document does actually now appear in our working group document list. It was failing to appear there for the longest time. But the status of that document is a lot of work has gone in behind the scenes about trying to get past all of the IETF last call comments that had come in before when the ISG had control of it. And so dealing with all of that. And we believe that we have a stable document now. So the version that's there now is a stable document. So what should happen at this point is that it's ready for working group last call. We have to do that again because there was a material change from the version that was submitted the first time around. So formally, we have to do that working group last call again. We'll get through that. And of course, then we're in need of an updated document shepherd write-up. And I think, Jody, you're the document shepherd for this, right? Yeah. So there's a couple of key issues that need to be added, technical issues that need to be added into the document shepherd write-up. It's just important to cover the particular change and why we did it in the document shepherd write-up. So we can follow up on that as we get into working group last call. But everyone will have a chance, and of course on the mailing list, those who are not in the room will have their chance to review the document one last time. And then hopefully we can move that one along pretty quickly. From our point of view, in terms of work and getting it done, this one is on the near-term deliverable. We can actually issue the working group last call for this just as soon as Antoine and I can get ourselves together and push that out the door. So that can start happening fairly quickly. And then we'll be able to move that along and get that back off our milestone list, although it currently is not even there at the moment. But okay. Any comments or additional commentary about the email addresses? And Scott's shaking his head no. So that's good. He's been doing a lot of the background technical work there. In fact, the lion's share of it all, and getting all that together. So this document is ready to go. Okay. RDAP extensions. We had a presentation about that yesterday. So hopefully we're all up to date on where we are with that. I was, and here on this slide, when we're putting it together, wanted to ask about being ready for working group last call or not. I think it's close, right? No, you still got. You do need to do an update on it. Yeah, that I appreciate, but I don't think there's any expectation of real work past that, right? You've got comments. Hopefully this next version stabilizes. Okay, he's coming to the mic. Please, Andy.
maybe when we rev it, we can get a review before we go to working group last call. It's just that, maybe that's putting the horse before the cart before the horse. There we go. But I would want us to go through and make sure that all the issues that came out on the mailing list actually got in. So.
Okay, all right. Oh, and you're back to making sure that you sync with Jim. But Jim, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't rush on this one. I mean, like you said, there are changes that are needed, and we definitely need to do this right, because then that will be the dependency for the other ones to start moving forward. So I just wouldn't rush too fast.
Don't think we're going to have any problem with the chairs doing things slowly, but yeah. But I guess more than anything, I think I'm just trying to emphasize order more than I am actual timing. So yeah, we'll do the internationalized email. I think the RDAP extensions is a good next one to make sure it comes out the door. But I do recognize we need a rev document. I want to make sure that versioning and extensions are in sync. And as long as that's true, we'll do the extensions, then the versioning and the media type will go, and all that's good. So those work items will move off our plate smartly at whatever speed we can make all of that come together. So that'll be a good thing. Okay. And Jazzdip wants to come to the mic, please.
Sorry, I didn't put myself in the queue. I think we had a couple of side meetings between the authors, among the authors. So guys, correct me, but the decision was, at least where we landed, it was very productive meetings. I'm talking about 3 documents: extensions, media type, and versioning. So I think the feeling was that get the extensions out of the door first after the current queue goes out, because they'll provide guidance for all the subsequent work. And I think, as Andy said, we are in pretty good shape overall. And then we also decided that the media type and the versioning drafts will stay separate docs. And we had a very good discussion on that today morning. And we'll cross-reference where it's necessary, but they will both go together when they go for the working group last call, so that there's consistency.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I think we're all in agreement with that. Anyone object to that analysis? Okay, so that's good. That's the path that we're headed down in terms of existing work. So that leaves us with one last existing document, if there's nothing else to say about those, and that's the using JS Contact in RDAP. And Mario, I believe we have some slides here, and he's going to have some discussion about that document. That document has kind of been around for quite some time for us. So
there is no need to run the slide.
Oh, okay.
So I can summarize the most relevant changes since IETF last IETF meeting. So we basically changed the category, and we turned the category into experimental. We included a normative dependency on both RDAP X media type and RDAP versioning. So we regard to the sequence of draft before. I think that this draft is in 4th place after RDAP extension, RDAP X media type, and RDAP versioning. We replaced the J's card query parameter with using both the extension parameter or RDAP X media type or the RDAP versioning query parameter. And about the transition process, we think, we agree that that should not be separated from this document. So we think that the transition process is should be in this document.
And I'm sorry, just a quick question. Sorry to interrupt. But could you clarify again who the we is when you say we think it should stay as part of it?
Me and Gavin Brown as the co-author.
Okay. All right. I see him
Okay.
waving his hand in the back. Thank you.
So, I'm not talking as the Pope, so not. So since we didn't have relevant feedback about the last published version, we do believe that the document is ready for working group last call. But as I said before, this should be including a normative dependencies from on two other documents. This should be after these two other documents.
So that's the extensions.
Yeah,
and
RDAP extension, RDAP, I mean, RDAP X media type, RDAP versioning that on turn have a dependency on RDAP extensions.
Okay. All right. So that's good. So we have quite a number of documents all lined up to go out the door here.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate that. And so any comments from anyone else? I know this document's been around a while, and I'm sure it's been a while since many people have taken a look at it, but it's important to highlight that, yes, the authors are now back in a place where they're ready to move it forward as experimental, which is what we had talked about back in Vancouver at the last IETF meeting, is moving it to experimental. And as long as no one has any objections to that and no other issues have taken up, just want to check that now, give you a heads up to take a look at that. And this way we'll add this to the list of documents to just begin to fall into the administrative process of moving forward to get to the ISG. And Aria standing up, please.
Hi, Ori Steele. I just wanted to ask, first of all, I'm glad we're using experimental in documents. I think that's great. I just want to understand, could we get a quick summary of, what does success for this specific experiment look like? So, what would be an indication that, after this experimental document, was published, that it was time to promote this to proposed standard? Because that could be a thing that folks might want to do in the future. So I wanted to understand, what's a successful experiment look like? When might you might think, okay, now it's time to consider upgrading this to proposed standard based on how the experimental document has been adopted, implemented, et cetera. So if someone could explain that, I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
So I'll give you my perspective from the chair seat, and I welcome Mario to come up and add in any way that he wants. But the primary driver for experimental versus proposed standard now was, in fact, to see what its uptake is like as compared to RDAP the way it's defined now. We have an installed base of RDAP and moving forward with all of that. So, this is a proposal for doing things differently. There's one particular registry that really is moving forward with this. And so it's going to be interesting to see where it goes in the industry. I'm not sure if there's anything else to add to that. Mario, did you want to add to that, please?
I think that the main reason is strictly connected to the number of implementation of these specifications. So we know that there are some just contact implementation in RDAP. 2 days ago at Hackathon, I heard about using just contact in RPP. So I think that the main reason is connected to the number of implementation.
Thank you. And I guess as a matter of formality, I probably should know the answer to this, but we've never really been in this place before with experimental documents. But from your point of view, what would be the next? I mean, at some point, who asks the question about whether it's time to change the experimental state? Would that come from you at some point? Are we expected to raise that? The author can do it or whatever?
No, that would be you all.
Oh,
So-
anybody can
Yeah.
ask the question.
Yeah, so I mean, just as a, and different areas handle the use of experimental documents differently. And as I understand it, using experimental documents is something that's, hasn't been done a lot here in this working group. But, typically the way it will work is you'll have a document, you might not have a lot of committed implementation, or you might be unsure about how this rollout, might progress. Experimental document can be developed quickly, it can be published quickly. You can gather feedback and experience from deploying the experiment. In the experimental document, you can even suggest this is what success for this experiment would look like, and we might consider upgrading proposed standard if we met these criteria or those kinds of things. I'm speaking generally. I'm not. This is just to explain how to use this document status. And then at some point, the experimental document has been published. There's a number of deployments, maybe way more than you anticipated. Folks are really enjoying it, and they like it. They want to upgrade it. Maybe they want to make a couple more changes, or they need to create some normative dependencies to kind of connect it to the rest of the ecosystem. And at that point, you would come forth and you would say, this experiment was really successful. This is really a proposed standard at this point. And we would, work through a working group adoption to new version, and then we kind of take it from there. That's my understanding. But yeah, happy to answer any questions folks have about it.
Okay, thank you. We have a IAB member has 2 fingers.
Yeah, just 2 fingers. I mean, that was great, Ori. The one thing that you left out is it's very helpful for experimental documents to define what would be a successful experiment, to actually lay out the things that you might measure, or how are you going to make the decision at the end. If you're going to decide that one aspect or another of the experiment is going to be a success, how do you do that?
Okay, thank you. Scott.
Scott Hollenbeck. Yeah, to build on what both what we just heard, I'd like to suggest that we create a public record of some of this. And we have 2 ways of doing that. We have a working group wiki. Yes, we do. And we have a mailing list. So if we wanted to capture what these experimental criteria are, we should either get them, in a mail note sent to the list, or on the wiki someplace. And so that, a year from now, or whenever the working group is asked to evaluate the results of this experiment, we actually have something we can look at, right? Instead of trying to guess.
I thank you for that. I actually like the mailing list suggestion myself, but we got some other hands in the queue here. Jim, please go ahead. Not to be confused with Jim up here at the front table.
Okay, Jim Reid.
Or Jim over here.
We need more Jims in this working group, please. I just make a quick comment here. We should be very, very careful about the use of experimental documents because they may have unintended consequences when they get into other fora, thinking particularly of ICANN, where they may then take on a life of their own, which is out of all proportion to what the significance is in this particular working group. So I think we're very, very careful about the use of experimental documents and experimental RFCs. Just give you that as a heads up.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good caution, but I think in some ways that would be being a good success. I mean, if it gets traction, I think that's the whole point. But yeah, you never know what they're going to do with it and how they might think about it. So, Andy, please.
I can give you a good example of what would be a success for the experiment, having been someone who looked at implementing JS Contact over JCard, and that is if you can actually make that transition between the data that you see in JCard and the data you can see in JS Contact, because those aren't the same. They're not the same data model. And so if you can figure out, we can successfully say that yes, you can model the things that are in JCard in JS Contact. I think that's a criteria for success right there. I do want to make a comment about this not being an ICANN working group. This came up yesterday too with I can't remember the exact document, but just because something won't happen because of ICANN doesn't mean the IETF should not consider it.
Thank you. That's important. Let me make a suggestion here. Looking for people to react to this. And Mario, maybe you should take responsibility for this as author of the document, or then you can enlist help from anyone. But even Andy, if you could make that suggestion on the mailing list. But Mario is, as part of getting ready to put the document forward and to go to working group last call, if you could create just an email message which says, this is the experiment, and just get that documented on the mailing list. I'm just going to decide here for the moment that documenting it on the mailing list is enough. We can have a little thread and discussion about it on the mailing list. Then we'll come to a final version of what the experiment is, and then it'll be there. So ultimately, as we get past working group last call, we can document that it's on the mailing list, even provide a link to the final message and part of the document shepherd write-up kind of thing. And that's what we'll do there. So Mario, if you wouldn't mind taking on responsibility for making sure that happens, that would be great. But please.
If understood well, if to consider just contact a successful experiment, if depends on if it is able to map every J-card feature or not. I and also Stefanek, that is the other author of JS Contact, we can answer that the experiment is successful because we implemented 2 different test suites to verify that every J-card and V-card feature is successful, is implemented, can be mapped onto a JS Contact feature. So I think that maybe to consider this a successful experiment, we should verify that our perception of what is complex, what is complex and what is easy should match the implementers' requirements. So these, at least I consider this a successful experiment in this case. So because if we consider the fact that JS Contact is able to map every J-card features, we can, since now, say that the experiment is successful.
So my quick response to that is I have no doubt that it's a success from your point of view, having done it all. But I think that from an IETF experiment point of view, it should be multiple independent implementations that interoperate. And that should be what the experiment is to find out. But Andy, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to expound upon what I said. It is more about what RDAP clients do that handle both JCard and JS Contact and the servers as well. That's really what I was getting at. I'm positive there is a mapping between everything in JS Contact and JCard, but it's about how clients handle it. That's what I would be concerned about.
Okay. Good clarity. So thank you for that. Okay, so we'll have that thread on the mailing list, and that'll be getting us ready for a working group last call on this. Okay. Any other comments or questions about the JS Contact and RDAP? Because I'm very happy to report we are now perfectly on time so far here. This is great. All right. That leaves us with one last interesting discussion to have, which is about our milestones. So this is the slide that your chair has made up this morning. Tries to capture the state of where we are with our work here. With one exception, I think the one thing that we missed here, question. So first, this is the top 4 are 4 documents which are actually on our milestone list currently and open. The next 4 are working group documents that don't currently have milestones. That's a failure. Okay, we should have milestones for all our documents. And then the next 4 are the presentations we had yesterday. Looking at Jim Gould here, your EPP, the EOH and EOQ stuff, I think are those, your intent is to ask to move those forward, ask for adoption, right? And you're ready to do that based on what was done yesterday, right? Okay, so that's a failure on our part here on the slide deck. So now the coding that's here. The struck out one is a milestone. That's a document that has expired. and we probably should just delete that work item. It's not going to move forward. The author of that document is not here, and there doesn't seem to be any motivation to otherwise pick it up and move it forward. So we'll be looking to strike that one off our current list. The JS contact, of course, we just talked about. So we now know that that one is ready to move forward. And now it's just about slotting it into the right time for it to move forward. We just got to get the experiment defined too. And then we'll also put it in after the other documents. RAR search and the geofeed data are the two documents that are waiting for chair actions. As soon as we get through the document shepherd write-ups, those are going to get crossed off and handed up to the IESG. So with that, we have only one open milestone and one document at the top currently. For the next four, you'll see that the ones in boldface are intended to reflect that those will be working documents. All right, and there's just the EOH and EOQ, which is really two documents that should have been boldfaced, and apologize for missing that. So that would be boldfaced there. And so the intent is that bold-faced items would become working group documents. Italicized documents are on their way out the door. You can see the internationalized email address document, as we just discussed, is ready to go out the door. So it's currently a working group document. We'll probably assign that a milestone date, because you got to give it a date to do things with it, of December, okay, to give it time to get through working group last call, and then we'll push that one out the door. So that'll be off the bottom list here. And then we're left with the rest of these. The versioning and extensions we just talked about, they're close to being ready. Unless somebody has any other magic insight here, the way that we have always done our milestones, and then we just update them every year if something slips. But we sort of try to order our documents in the way in which we would prefer them to be worked on. We pick a date to start with. So in this case, we'll do the internationalized email starting in December of 2024. And then we just slot a document in every 2 months. And that's the milestone date we give it, unless somebody else has anything interesting that you want to suggest for us. I mean, that's what we'll do. So we'll do the internationalized email. We'll do RDAP extensions next. We'll actually put the versioning and media type together, all right, as the next one. And then we'll follow that with JS contact in terms of milestones. And then we'll follow those milestones with the next three documents. And unless somebody has any particular preferred order for those, I mean, we'll have to see what we want to do here. The domain variant stuff, I would probably like to move along within about a year. So maybe we'll just slot these things in some way. We'll just see what we can do here. We'll see where the status of the document is and how we get adopted along the way. And we'll adjust those next three. Unless anybody has a preferred order, we'll just make something up and put it out there, and then people can comment on that. Okay, so I think that's what we're going to do here. Now, in terms of when to do working group adoptions, we have a number of working group calls to get through. I am sensing, right, I think we agree that people want to get the work done that we have in front of us first, so we don't have to be in a hurry to adopt the documents. Typically, what we've done, the chairs have done over time here in this working group, is we tend to try to move one document at a time along, just because it tends to be a core set of people who tend to do everything. And it's a little awkward to try to push more than one document at a time. It's kind of a lot of work for, you know, the core set of people who tend to do most of the reviewing and keep things going. So we will simply slot in the actual adoptions when we can. We're definitely going to want to get through a couple of working group last calls here. After we get through these first few, maybe we'll slot an adoption in the middle here somewhere, one or two as we go along. But we'll push the working group last calls first. Keep in mind, all of those are 2 weeks long, and we'll try to just do them one after another. And if we don't have another one ready to go, then we'll do a call for adoption on one of the documents to get it pulled in and slotted up. So we will try every 2 weeks to keep an action moving as far as the administrative steps are concerned. But we won't do more than one at a time. Okay. Certainly open to other suggestions. That's just kind of what we've been doing. Oh, you have a comment, please?
Yeah, well, perhaps initiate a discussion. What I also seem to see is that we, over at least the past year, we're seeing some more differentiation in our documents. In adoption, we used to have an adoption process where we said, okay, on our milestone list, we will have 3 RDEP documents and 3 EPP documents to make sure that it was not all EPP or all RDEP, so the specialists in either camp should do all the work. I see something else changing at the moment, and I don't know what your feelings are about it, but I see more RER work coming up, and I'm very glad to see that more people from RERs are joining our discussions, especially with RDEP, but now also with the whole provisioning discussion that we will have tomorrow. I think that's very interesting. And talking about the BOF that's there tomorrow, there is the whole discussion on the HTTPS and QUIC and RPP discussion, which is the underlying layer, which may be another topic. So we will have 4 topics. Is there anything we should do to make sure that any of those topics only have 1 document or 2 documents maximum in the queue? That's basically my observation.
Yeah, and thank you for that. He and I had talked about that earlier, and I forgot to mention that. But yeah, so we'll have to. We've now, based on what we have in front of us, we've talked about what we can do here. But Antoine is right. We do want to be careful to be sensitive to what's going on elsewhere, and whatever EPP becomes. Again, we're assuming that there'll be a lot of overlap with our core set of people who do things, and we're going to want to be careful as we go along here to manage our work in the order of priorities and things like that. So yeah, just consider this what we said here about our documents, at least what we'll document for now, but it's subject to change based on the changing dynamics in other work and what's going on. And it's important to call that out. And I see we have a little bit of a queue here. So Jim Gould, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something that I don't see any, I guess, conflict with the EOH and EOQ with the RPP work. That's completely independent. And we'll get economies of scale by having those go at the same time. They're pretty much identical related to the format, the structure. So we would get economies of scale if they went at the same time.
Okay, so
transport experts, right?
so just to clarify, as a matter of formality, in the same way that we talked about wanting to put the media type and versioning document together, you're talking about bundling those 2 together also.
I'm not saying because of a normative reference between them, but because the same folks that would be reviewing one would be able to pretty much follow along with the other one. So therefore, we would be able to get those through more quickly or more easily together.
Okay. All right. So we will keep in mind that we can push those along as a pair, just as a matter of convenience. And
Yeah. Because if we found an
that
issue
makes sense.
with one, then we'll probably want to update the other one. It's kind of like.
Okay. Sounds good. Wow. What a queue building up. Edmund, you're up next. Thanks.
Edmund here. Sorry. So listening to the, I guess, the slotting and scheduling, I just want to note, I guess, a couple of things. One, the IDN variant EPP stuff is yet to be added, but there is a little bit of a soft correlation with the new GTLD program. It's not hard. The reason why I say it's not hard is because if it's not there, then the staff team will be, have to evaluate it differently. But there is a part where it says those new GTLDs with variant TLDs need to show that they could technically manage those variant TLDs in a proper manner. And show that they have the technical ability to do that. And obviously having the protocol, having it done would make that assessment much more straightforward. That's why I say it is a soft correlation, but it's, if it doesn't exist, then obviously ICANN will have to figure out how to assess that. So I think, that's one of the things that maybe if we can keep in mind to expedite that a little bit would be nice. The other thing is whether right now we're started the conversation on the EPP side. What about the RDAP side on variants? Will we need to look into it, and should that start to come up?
Yeah, so thank you. My view about the domain variant thing, thank you very much for calling out the externality in terms of motivation. It's very much on my mind, as you might expect. I actually think of it as a maybe medium firm kind of externality that's motivating moving that work forward. Because I think those who want to do the variants in the GTLD space are going to need this. Or need something like it, whatever it becomes. So that's important. In terms of RDAP, yeah, my view about that is in RDAP, really what happens is you also would include a similar extension. And that's what you would include in a response when you're returning a variant, and you would do that. And so thus, if you understand the extension, then you know what you're doing. And if you don't understand the extension, you at least get a valid query, backwards compatibility works. If your suggestion is that the document should cover that, I guess I'm non-committal about it, but maybe we should, or maybe it should be a separate adjacent document doing RDAP. I don't know yet. So, but that's something we can visit when we get into doing the work. So thank you for that. Powell, please go ahead.
I really appreciate this approach of, let's say, phasing in the drafts and let's say more structured planning. Many thanks for that, Chaz. And I would also appreciate or propose that also between the meetings there is kind of transparency over the mailing list. What is actual the focus work before last call, because when we have last call repetitions, when people tend to look only on the drafts when last call is called. So I think that this will be helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate the support. Ari, please.
Hi, Ori Steele as an individual. On the EOH and EOQ topic, I'm not a transport AD or a WIT AD, so I don't know what I'm talking about here, but I was wondering, is there a way to make these like a single document, HTTP3, is there any way, like, do we really need these two documents? Do you want to run, two sort of experiments or sort of two major sort of new pieces, or are these sort of positioned, one option A or option B? I just wanted to sort of unpack that a little bit and maybe learn a little bit more about why EOH and EOQ are separate things.
Jim, you want to jump in and say a few words?
Yeah, pretty much they are options to choose from for transports for EPP that follow pretty much exactly the same template as the existing EOT RFC. So there's no relation between the two other than that they are EPP compliant transports that meet the requirements in the base RFC 5730. So you really wouldn't want to mix the two. But as I said earlier, there would be economies of scale if we were reviewing them at the same time, because like I said, they have similar kinds of content in there, same structure. They follow exactly the EOT structure, which we did that on purpose because it was successful for EOT. So therefore, let's do it for the other two transports as well. Does that answer it?
Sort of. So, I mean, I understand that there are two options, but you either need to implement one and interoperate on one, or implement the other and interoperate on the other,
Or both.
Or both. Why would you? but why would you want all three? Like, won't that make deployment more difficult? I'm just trying to understand the sort of operational considerations for deploying all three.
Well, they're solving different issues. For one, you would probably be, if you're a registry and you're going to the public cloud, you'd probably go with EOH. But there are some registry operators that run multiple TLDs, and you may decide that some of your registries may run on EOH. You may decide they're going to run on EOT. And you may start looking at EOQ related to performance gains or security enhancements with Quick, which we need to test. We do need to test to see whether or not there's real performance gains by doing that. But really, it comes down to you can run them all at the same time. We've, in our systems, we had run 2 transports at the same time, and then we wound up shutting down EOH. But that was many years ago. And in this scenario, there wasn't a concern around public cloud. So, yeah.
Okay, good. We have quite a queue that's built up here along the way. Powell, you're up next. Oh, old hand, okay. And Jim, I assume that's still an old hand. So Zahid?
Oh, sorry. So, I mean, I think my fellow Eddie asked for a transport Eddie, so I thought like I should jump up and say something about like, because I am also responsible for Quick. So I think it all depends on like what you want to do. I mean, HTTPS actually says like you can run over TCP or Quick. HTTP3 says like you run over, it's basically HTTPH, but you run over Quick. But I also see like there is a case might be like you don't actually, this is not an HTTP client. It's just like a client trying to do the Quick, running on Quick. If that is the case, I'd say like EPP over Quick could be a thing. But if you're always having like HTTP clients, maybe we can just solve it in one place. Like it's a semantic thing as a transport thing. You don't need to do it 2 different ways. But if you have a different kind of like HTTP clients and other clients doing this kind of thing, then we might actually need to do 2 separate things. That's my thing. Because when I see like HTTPS, it doesn't tell me like whether I'm running over TCP or whether I'm running over Quick. Make sense? Yeah, sure.
Okay, just, yeah, very quickly, not too much. Do a quick time check here.
Yeah, real quick. So I'm assuming that you were thinking that with HTTP 3.0, that since it's running on top of Quick, that you wouldn't choose to implement EPP over Quick? Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, HTTP3 is always over Quick. So if what I'm saying, like if you're a HTTP client and runs HTTP3, you're running it HTTP over Quick. So then you don't need like something to run over Quick separately. But if you have a non-HTTP client that wants to use Quick as a transport for EPP for whatever reason, then you have this version.
The main reason why would be you would be getting the performance. You're getting at a lower level. So what would wind up happening is that EPP over Quick would remove layers and you get the performance.
Maybe.
Okay. Wes, you're up next.
Thank you, Wes Hardiger. From an architectural point of view, one of the things that, so 2 comments about transports in general. One, it's actually pretty common to put them in separate RFCs because then products can list which RFCs independently that they might support, even though they might be close to identical. The recent trend in the IETF as a whole is to move to smaller and more discrete RFCs. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I leave subject to the room. The other thing is when you're talking about multiple transports, it's always better to have at least one that is declared as the one that everybody should implement, and then the other ones are optional. We certainly fell into this with NetConf way back in 2002 and things like that, where SSH became the mandatory one, because what you don't want is a client trying to probe and figure stuff out, right? AD&D is the other place where that's being worked out.
Yep, thank you for that. And I see Jim nodding his head, so I think yep, taking that on board. And we have one more in the queue here. Carl, please, you're up next.
not tall enough, apparently. Carl Dyson from Nominet. Just wanted to echo the comments made by Jim. In that, as a
You're going to have to clarify which Jim.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, good point.
You can
Jim-
take it out of the holder and make it comfortable there. You don't have to look like you're craning.
Yeah, okay, so that's better. Yeah, so echo the comments made by Jim here on my left.
Jim Gould.
In that, as a registry services provider, the registry that we're operating on behalf of might have a preference as to which protocol we're going to offer to their registrars. And so by them being in separate documents, we can then be clear what they can be clear to us, what they want us to be compliant with. We can also be clear as to what we are compliant with to the registrars themselves.
Thank you. Also a good point of clarity. And I saw Jim nodding his head, so he was taking all of that on board too. So that's a good thing. Okay. Any other comments or questions about our documents and what we're up to here? Not seeing any hands or anybody running to the microphone. Okay. Mario, just in case, let me call out to you what's in the chat. A comment from Robert Stepanek about J-card, B-card conversion between them being documented in an RFC. So as part of your experiment stuff, just want you to take note of that. Okay.
Talking about experiments, can I have a show of hands in the room who is willing to review one of the documents on this slide? We have that noted now, right?
That's right. Took a picture. Sorry, hand. Not really supposed to use hands anymore in the IETF. Probably was supposed to use the poll thing.
Yeah.
But you know, we didn't see that. So, okay. Yeah. Thank you. So thank you very much for all that. I think that this was all a really good discussion. You know, I'm glad that we had some time to do some planning here and looking at our work and understanding where we're going. You know, we're a relatively small working group, but we're pretty productive for our size, comparatively speaking, I think. And you know, we do have some significant items in front of us, but hopefully we'll move those along smartly and just try to keep that moving. So the chairs will get together here and clean up our milestone list and make sure we make clear on the mailing list the order in which we're doing things so that people can see that and track that. And we'll get that done here in a week or two. Well, I won't be doing it next week, but maybe in 2 weeks we'll get it done.
Cancel our meeting next Monday. So.
That's right. But I think with that, we'll move on here. It just takes us to our AOB slide. And so I'll ask the question if anybody has anything else that they want to stand up and talk about and ask about in our group here.
In the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, in the last 2 minutes. This is ideally perfect. I think that in the interest that having the technical session last time worked. So yeah, walk up to Andy. You know, this worked out really well for us because we did our technical work. And so I think we'll put in for 2 meetings again. But again, in preparation for that, you know, keep in mind, we got to have work to do. So when we ask for agenda items, you know, let's get those from people so that we can do the right thing here. But as long as we get enough requests for discussions about stuff, we'll continue to do the 2-meeting thing and 2-hour slot for technical discussions. Andy, please.
Yeah, sitting in the back of the room today is part of my exercise program. So now I just want to remind everyone that there's the RESTful provisioning protocol BOF tomorrow. So if you are interested in that, show up.
Yes, thank you for that. Very good point. We started all that discussion on our mailing list here. So thank you for that reminder. Should have thought of doing that. And Ori, did you want to say a word here?
Thank you, chairs. Excellent session.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Separately, could I ask Powell and Medica and Rick and Jim and Scott and Ruth, if you could just come up to the front here just for me. I just wanted to talk to everyone for just a moment. And that's totally independent of the meeting, please. Thank you.
I need to go find Tommy Pauly at 1400. So
okay, well, what I wanted to do, I'm a mentor here.